All right, this is Math 8, Chapter 1, Lesson 8, working on some roots here. We're looking for two factors that multiply together to get the number beneath the radical sign here. So in this first case here, 36 can be broken up into 6 times 6. Because those match, we would say the square root of 36 is equal to 6. On number 3, we're looking at a cube root. That means what number can I multiply by itself 3 times to get to 27? 27 happens to be the same as 3 times 3 times 3, and 64 happens to be the same as 4 times 4 times 4. So because they're in a cluster of 3 and a cluster of 3, my solution would simply be 3/4. Because that's the number in that group, and that's the number inside of the bottom group, 3/4. On this next one here, we have a decimal value. I can first of all tell you that the answer is going to stay plus or minus because that's the thing that's out in front of the radical. 2.25 you may not know, but if you recognize this here, we know that 15 squared is equal to 225. As a result then, what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, it's not 15 squared, it's 1.5. Becomes our solution for number 5. So it's good to have a little list there. One of the things that I showed in my previous video is I make a little cheat sheet like this I keep around that shows me the squared values of the basic numbers 2 to 20 and then the cube values of numbers 2 to 12. So I can take a look real quick and say, oh, well, here's 15 at 225. So if I have a 2.25, I'm going to go with a 1.5 for my squared value. On number 7, we have a negative number underneath here. Well, there's really not a number I can square that's going to give me a negative number. You might say, well, what about 9? Well, sure, but let's just pretend here. If I did 9 times 9, that'd be 81, not negative 81. If I did negative 9 times a positive 9, that would give me negative 81, but that's not a squared factor. Those are different numbers. It won't work. So in this case for number 7, we'd have to actually say that there are no real solutions for number 7 and leave it at that. Number 13 down here, I have h squared. I want to get the h by itself. To do that, I take the square root of both sides, and the square root cancels the square, so h becomes equal to the square root of 121. 121 is 11 squared. So this becomes plus or minus 11. And we say plus or minus 11 because a negative 11 squared does equal 121, just as 11 squared equals 121. Since both those values work, h is equal to plus or minus 11. And our last one here today, we have 0.0196 equals m squared. Again, I'm going to take the square root of both sides there, and so I'm going to end up with a plus or minus value of this funny thing. And I have 1.0196. When I look back at my chart over here, one of the things I notice is that on the square value of 14 squared, I have 196. So that tells me it's probably going to be using 14 as my solution. But it won't be 14. It's going to be some decimal value using a 1 and a 4. If I get on my calculator real quick, I can take a plug-in look here and say, well, what happens at 0.14 times 0.14? Well, that gives me 0.0196, and hey, that's what I'm looking at there. So my answer would be plus or minus 0.14 for the square root of that value there. Okay, hope that helps get you on track for your work today. Good luck with the rest of the problems.